Chapter 10, Arrays and Other Collections, Solution Movie 10.1. Okay, for exercise 10, we're going to perform one of the most common tasks associated with collections, displaying a list. So in the collections demo project, I have that open over here, add a new class named continent. So I'm going to right-click this node, select New File, and under iOS Source, Swift File, and say Next. Since I'm creating a class named continent, I'll name the source code file the same, and click Create. Next, I type the class keyword, press Tab, and enter the name of the class, which is continent. In step 2, add an instance method to the continent class named getAllContinents that returns an array of all continents. Okay, so I'm going to say function getAllContinents. It doesn't accept any parameters, so I'll do open and close paren. And our return arrow, and our type is going to be a string array. So I can just type like this. And we'll do open curly brace, press return, close curly brace. Now I can just return that method directly here, right in line. I'll say return and declare the string array by listing each member. Okay, so that's our array. For our next step, in the ViewController class, add a continent property to hold a reference to a continent object. So go back to ViewController. I'm going to add a property, var, and the name of the property is continent. And it's asking me to hold a reference to a continent object. So we can just initialize that right here. Continent, open, close paren. So in our next step, in the ViewController class, add a continents array to hold the list of continents returned from the getAllContinents method. So again, I say var, name of the property is continents, and it's going to be an array of strings. So I can specify the type, and I can do an empty array by doing the open and close paren. In our next step, it says that in the Viewdidload method, add code to call the continent object's getAllContinents method and store the results in the continents array. So I can go to the bottom of the Viewdidload method, and I'm going to say self.continents equals self.continent, the continent object, getAllContinents. So we're referring to the continents property, which is a string array, and we're calling the getAllContinents method on the continent object. We're storing it back into this array. So we do that in Viewdidload, which fires as soon as this scene first appears. Alright, so now it asks us to change the ViewController class to display this list of continents, and that's going to require changes to this list of methods. So our first method is Viewdidload. So currently, we're grabbing from the names array to store into the label at the top of the screen. So let's comment that line of code. And we need to put our new line after we retrieve the continents. And we can say self.lbldemo.text equals self.continents. And we'll just store 0, the very first item in that array, into the label. Now you'll notice here I didn't reference the names property using self, but I did down below. You can actually do it either way. Personally, I prefer to use self because whenever I'm reading my code, when I see self.continents, I know immediately it's a property. I don't have to search. Was that a parameter that was passed? Is that a local variable? If I say self.continents, I know it's a property just by reading it. So I tend to use self in these situations. Alright, so that's the Viewdidload method. Next we need to change PickerView number of rows in component. That's this one, picker view, number of rows in component. So we'll comment this out and we'll replace it with return self.continents.count. So we're returning the number of continents in the continents array. Our next method is picker view title for row for component. That's this one, picker view title for row for component. So again, we'll comment this line of code and we'll replace it with return self.continents and we'll get the row number. So when a row number is passed in, we go to the continents array, we grab the value from that. For example, if it's 0, we would grab the first continent, 1 we would grab the second continent, and so on. Alright, our final method is picker view did select row in component. And that's right here, picker view did select row in component. So this fires whenever somebody selects an item in the picker view. Right now we're grabbing an item from the names array. So we'll comment that line of code and say self.lbldemo.text equals self.continents, and we'll specify the row number that's passed to us. So at this point we're ready to check it out. I'll go ahead and click the run button. Currently I'm set as iPhone 6. I can do pretty much any iPhone I want. I'll press run, and there we have it. So we have our list of continents, and whenever we select a new continent, that one appears in the label.